Hi and welcome. We're going to be doing the Bhagavad Gita today, ending chapter 13 and beginning with chapter 14. Um, so lots ahead. Before we get started, let's begin with a little mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnam Sharanam Mama. Shri Krishnam Sharanam Mama. Shri Radhe Shyam. All right. So the Bhagavad Gita, we've been doing this for some time, and once again, I want to really thank everyone that's here that has been following me since the time we started. Some of you have been here since the beginning, all the way through chapter 2 till now, and that's taken over a couple of years. So thank you for being here. Now, in chapter 13, Krishna has been talking about the nature of this world that we live in. And before that, he talked about the soul, he talked about the nature of God. So if you've missed that, then please check in. I have all the videos on YouTube, and you can go to a playlist so look for my name, Rohit Janeja, look for it on YouTube, and you'll find that there's a playlist there of the Bhagavad Gita meetups. And you can see them right from the beginning going back. Well, I don't think we've got them all the way to the very beginning. It was chapter 2, because that was when we was in my house. We had live events at that time. And then we had to go online. So you'll see whatever it was that we did ever since we went online. But if you'd like to catch it up from there, you'll find all of them in the playlist. Keep that in mind, because it's not it's not like out there in front on the main screen. All right, so this is chapter 13, text number 33. And here Krishna says, the sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Think about this example. The sky, due to its subtle nature, does not mix with anything, although it is all pervading. Similarly, the soul, situated in Brahman vision, does not mix with the body, though situated in the body. Now, there's a few terms to be explained in here, and that would be helpful for those of you that are new or unfamiliar. What he's pointing out is that the soul, our real self, is unaffected by all that has been going on in our life. We go through so much in the course of a lifetime. We have ups and downs of all kinds. We have various, things that scar and mar our psyche, and that then become known as our wounding or our traumas. There's different words for these things nowadays. But all of that is happening at the level of the ego. The ego was created by the mind. It is a sense of self that the mind creates from the time you're born, gathering data from the world, where the world tells you you're a boy or a girl. It tells you you're smart or you're stupid. It tells you you're pretty or you're ugly. And then you gather this data together and you create a collage. And that collage becomes your sense of self, your identity. That identity then is what you think is you. You think is your personality is you. You think your body is you. You think that all the story of your life is you. And in this way, you go about trying to sort out the things that happened in your life. You might go to a therapist, you might go to a healer, you might try to resolve all of this. And in the course of your life, you do everything possible to take care of this body, to feed it, to clothe it, to educate it. You feed your mind with knowledge and information and develop a career and all of those things for one sole purpose, and that is to survive in this world. But at no point do most of us, and there are the few of you here who have been asking the questions, but most people do not stop to ask the question about who am I? Who is the possessor of this body? Who is the one that sees through these eyes? I have eyes. I see things. Who is the I that sees? Who is the I that talks? Who is the I that moves and breathes? And then when this body dies, leaves this body. Who is that I? Have you met that person before? Have you come in touch with the real you? And if you have a friend or a partner, a person who you love, have you met the real person? Or are you in touch with their body and their mind and their ego? That's a really important thing to look at. Who are you interacting with? Krishna is saying here that the soul, that is the real me, the real I, does not mix with the body. It is not affected by the body. It is not affected by the mind. It is not affected by the ego. And that evidence of that is there, that when you come in touch with the soul, you feel it. You feel the presence of the soul, untouched by the things of this world. When I get in touch with my soul, or you get in touch with yours, or he or she or they, or millions of people get in touch with their soul, the experience will be the same. There is no difference between what you will experience and what I will experience. So in one sense, some people might say that we are one because the experience is one, because the experience that we're having is the same. And we are one, and we are also different. My soul has been experiencing things in very unique ways based on its past life journey. And it is continuing to perceive the world in a certain way, to need certain things, to desire certain things. And although those desires are at the level of the ego, there is a deeper desire within the soul. You see, desire is a very deep thing. Many spiritual teachers have talked about getting rid of desire. And many people have tried to get rid of desire and even become monks. I personally went through that myself at the age of 20. And you realize that desire is not one of those things you can shake off. Even if you become a monk, then you want to become the head of the monastery. Then you want to be able to control what people eat or what they wear or how they go about things, or whether they are meditating enough or whether they are fasting enough or whether they're doing it right or how they should do it. And again, you're back to controlling and trying to look good and trying to impress others, and all of that starts to happen. So desire, the desire to be significant, the desire to matter, the desire to be important, doesn't leave us. For the most part, it doesn't. So what do? We learn to take desire and make it serve us. We begin to desire that which we are, that which is in our highest interest, that which will free us from suffering. We channel our desire in the direction of our liberation and our freedom. So that's how we take the very things of this world and we transform them. There was a concept of the touchstone in the past. They used to talk of that, where you had this stone that could touch anything and that thing would become gold. Now, I don't know if this was a mythical thing or if there ever was such a thing, but of course, obviously, anyone who had such a thing would be known to become extremely wealthy. But the touchstone for us in this age, in this time, in the absence of such a mythical touchstone that transforms things into gold, is to be able to transform the world into spirit. Because not only is spirit the thing that is situated within this body, but spirit is also the energy of the universe. So it is all around us. And to the degree that we begin to perceive that spirit in ourselves and in others and in the world, we transform the world. The world becomes an expression of spirit. Spirit expressing itself, the soul, Brahman, expressing itself, like waves rising out of the ocean, taking various forms, clouds forming in the sky, and we see them and we marvel at the different shapes and colors of the clouds at sunset. So, in much the same way, we begin to marvel at all the things that are happening in this world, and rather than being disturbed by them, we're now fascinated by them, including the ups and downs. Someone was telling me the other day about gratitude, and we were discussing this, and it struck me. Why are we talking about only being grateful for the good things that happen in our life? What an amazing practice it would be to be grateful for the bad things, to be grateful for our wrinkles, to be grateful for our white hairs, if you have them, if you're old enough, to be grateful for the so-called sufferings and traumas, to be grateful for that. Have you ever tried it? And if you haven't, try being grateful for the things you do not want, for the things that are undesirable, for the terrible stuff that is happening in the world, for all the pain and suffering. Because I deeply believe that when we are grateful for both the positive and the negative, the good and the evil, the desirable and the undesirable, then we go beyond the framework of thinking of things as desirable and undesirable, as right and wrong, as good and bad. We go out of the dualistic notion of seeing the world. It's very difficult. The mind does not want to operate like that. The mind naturally operates in terms of dualities. So try using gratitude as a way to break through the tendency of the mind to do that. Try that. See what happens. Come back and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And if any of you has already done it, I'd love to have your comments now. Have you tried being grateful for the things that don't go the way you want, that are unpleasant and ugly, that are hurtful and sad? And if so, how was that experience for you? Is there anyone wanting to say something? You can raise your hand. Is that a hand being raised by Amanda? Hi, come on in. And hi. Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely. You're no longer affected by what's going on. It's happening because good and bad is going to happen. I mean, desirable, you can call it good or bad, or you can call it desirable and undesirable. That's going to happen anyway, right? Now, if you can ride the waves of that happening, then you come out ahead. And being grateful for that is just one very powerful way of doing it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna starts with that. He says, happiness and distress are like summer and winter seasons, right? One must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So that's another way of doing it, tolerate. But gratitude definitely shifts it into high gear, right? I love that. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's great. Anybody else have an experience with being grateful for something unpleasant in your life? Or maybe you weren't grateful in the beginning, but maybe later on you realized that it was such a blessing. Because very often, in hindsight, we can see the blessing of something that we thought was terrible at the time. Sometimes we can't see it right away. But what if you could find that blessing regardless of. See, one of the things that blinds us is that we have a very set idea of how things should be. And when they don't go that way, we're so upset that we don't see the blessing behind that event. It's a practice. None of us is perfect at it. None of us is going to do it all the time. Neelu is in the comments and she says, I definitely felt growth from painful moments in my life. Thanks for sharing that. And if there's a specific kind of experience, that'd be fine too. If you want to share, I'm going to just give this another minute and then we'll continue. Yeah. Show your video when you come on with a question, please. Just for that moment. Then you can turn it off again. Hi. Hi, welcome. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Right. Oh yeah, of course. These days. Our phones. Yeah. 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 What is important is to train yourself to look beyond duality. Train yourself. Notice what I'm saying. I'm not saying any of us is good at it. I'm not saying any of us is perfect at it. I'm simply saying keep reminding yourself to train yourself because you're training yourself to deal with your mind. Money will come and go, things will come and go, but you're training yourself to deal with your mind. That's the important lesson in it all. You're training yourself how to view the world differently. You're training yourself to go beyond suffering. And it may start with a purse and some money lost, but it may lead to, it may be a preparation for something bigger. And at that time, you'll be ready to handle that bigger thing that is to come. Because big things will come to all of us. I don't mean any ill to anybody. I just mean the big and small things are going to come to all of us, right? And the more ready we are, the more prepared we are. Like for example, death comes in our lives. We're not ready. We're devastated. Or the loss of a loved one, maybe a partner who leaves you. It can happen. The more ready you are, the more prepared you are, the less it will hurt and impact you. The more unprepared you are for something, the more it will impact you. So see it as preparation for life. All right, I'm going to continue with Bhagavad Gita now. All right. O son of Bharat, as the sun alone illuminates all this universe, so does the living entity, one within the body, illuminate the entire body by consciousness. So, isn't it interesting that if I feel a little pain even at the tip of my finger, my entire body goes into a reaction, right? Sometimes they use torture methods where they peel off a person's nail, and it is so painful. You may have had it happen because there was a problem with the nail, but if you've ever had any part of your body, the least thing, a little thorn, a nail, or something come, and the whole body is affected. And you notice that consciousness is spread throughout the body. Now, people can say it's because of the nervous system, they can say it's because of this or that or the other, but still behind the nervous system, there is something that senses. So that's why, for example, in anesthesia, they will shut off a certain part of the brain that is responsible for the entire body, and then you will no longer feel when a doctor is doing an operation. But behind that part of the brain, what makes even that work, what is it? That is referred to as consciousness. That consciousness is the soul. That soul is the living entity. That living entity is you. You are behind the mind, the body. You are the one sitting inside there, like with this, VR headset on and watching the world. You are in this spacesuit of the body and navigating this world. So it's time to get to know you. And Krishna is saying here, as the sun illuminates this universe, so does the living entity within the body illuminate the entire body by consciousness. Now, the more subtle you make your awareness, most of us live at a lot of people live at a very gross level of awareness, meaning they're only aware of the big things that happen. But the more subtle you become in your awareness, the more you start to notice subtle things. For example, an emotion is a subtle thing. Even to notice your thoughts is a sign of subtlety. You're able to now notice something that it's not, the thought is not now controlling you. You are able to step outside the thought and watch it. That's a level of subtlety. You're able to watch your emotion. You're able to guide your emotion. You're able to guide your thought. That's a higher level of subtlety. And you're able to then access, just like you access subtle sounds and flavors and tastes and smells by really paying attention to them, right? You won't notice certain tastes unless you really slow down and pay attention to them, or certain sounds. You really listen intently. In the same way, you begin to come to the most subtle aspect of your being, and that is your soul. And when you come to that by going through the layers of the mind, slowing down, breathing, coming into your body, and as you come into your body, becoming aware of that which lies within the body, consciousness, you begin to experience it. And the first experience you'll have, we've all had this experience, is peace. You suddenly feel peaceful. If you close your eyes, you take a few deep breaths, you start feeling peaceful. Why? Nothing happened. There was no switch we activated called peace, and yet you're feeling peaceful. Why? Perhaps there's something in you that is inherently peaceful. Yes, that is the reality. And if you spend some time with that something, with that part of you, you'll notice not only is it peaceful, but it's very gentle, it's kind, it's loving, it's sweet, it's tender. It's wise. It has incredible wisdom within it. It's not knowledge, it's wisdom. It's insightful. It's loving. It's spontaneous. It's carefree. It doesn't give a damn about anything. That's you. All of us. That's the nature of our consciousness. So it illuminates the entire body. Now, what takes away that spirited nature that we had as a child? All the stuff that happens here, all our thinking, all our story making, interpreting of the world, all of that, all our experiences and what we make out of them, and our belief systems, and it distorts everything now. And our original nature is hidden. Our original childlike, playful, spontaneous, fabulous nature is hidden. And a few people have managed to keep it alive, and I'm always in awe of such people because they're such an inspiration. People who have a childlike nature, even though they're adults. So then Krishna continues, those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature and attain to the supreme goal. So those who see with the eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body. So there is the body. Who is the knower of the body? Who is aware that you're listening right now? Who is aware that I'm talking right now? Who is aware of this? There's something behind the talking that is aware. There is something behind the moving that is aware that my hand is moving, that is aware that I am seeing this screen. Right? There's something behind me that is aware of this. So as I go back into that awareness, I'm getting in touch with the knower of the body. So the body and the knower of the body. Such a person who has been able to separate these two, as you separate oil and water, as you separate these two, you begin to realize it's not the same thing. My thoughts and me are not the same thing. My story and me are not the same thing. I have a life story, things that happened in my life, but I am not that story. I've had things happen, but I'm not defined by those things. I have a hand, a face, a body, but I'm not defined by this. If this face has become or body has become old, I am not defined by it. Or if it is young and beautiful, I am still not defined by it. If it is in any way fat or thin or ugly or beautiful or knowledgeable or smart or stupid, I am not defined by it. That is the important thing. The important thing is to realize that I am not defined by any of this. I am not limited. I do not need to be ashamed. I do not need to be in any way kept in this box. I need to set myself free from this box. This box of definition of the body, definition of the mind, definition of the ego, definition of gender, definition of race, definition of all these things. Free, 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 free. Release yourself. So that is what he's saying next. One who knows the difference between the body and the knower of the body can also understand the process of liberation from bondage. What is the bondage? The bondage is all those things I mentioned. Bondage is the attachment to all these things, all these identities that we have. And such a person now can become liberated not only from the bondage of all of this, but the bondage of this world, and attain to the supreme goal. The process seems hard, but it's a process of freeing yourself from the clutches of the mind, the clutches of the ego. What is that all about? It comes down to one word: identification with. Identification with the body, identification with the mind, identification with your beliefs. As long as you disidentify, I don't know if there's such a word, I doubt there is, but some people talk of detachment. I think it's not about detachment so much from the world, it is a detachment from your identities. Detaching from that which you believe, that which you think, that which you feel, that which you know. Releasing yourself from all of that and becoming free. What would your life be like? Has anyone ever experienced it? Has anyone ever experienced a moment where you felt free like the wind? Where you felt liberated from all suffering? Where nothing mattered anymore? Have you ever had such an experience? This is for any of you to share. I think we all have, but I want you to start to connect with it. Nilu says, I felt it and I feel like for a moment it scared me because we are used to the attachment. You are so right, Nilu. Thank you for sharing that. We get scared of that experience. We get scared because the ego gets scared. It thinks it's losing control. It thinks you're going out of your mind. You, in fact, are going out of your mind. And going out of your mind is a wonderful thing. But do it in a way that is conscious. Don't go out of your mind in a way that is unconscious, because then there's a whole other trip that happens. I won't go into that right now. But go into it with consciousness and with awareness. watching, observing, stepping out of it. It means not identifying with the thoughts. So some people say your thoughts come, you watch them like a cloud that passes by and goes. Not easy to do, but definitely possible. The idea is not to latch on. I've often thought of it like an email you get. In the old days, you got emails and you had, sometimes it said, or even now, there are emails that come with a link on them. If you click on that thing, it takes you to some place that downloads a bunch of junk onto your computer or your phone, and suddenly things stop working. So it's the same here. Any thought you have, if you agree with it or disagree with it, it's got you. If you like or dislike, it's got you. If you don't understand what I've said, please ask. I'm open to any questions. Ilu says it's hard when everyone around you is trying to nudge you back. Yes, the world will try to nudge you back. They will try to bring you back from your moments of awakening and enlightenment and say, oh, no, that was nothing. You're just making stuff up. That's not a big deal. Come back to earth. All right, we begin now with chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. This chapter is very important because it will lay out some of the very basic ways in which you begin to understand levels of consciousness. That's another way of saying this. The three modes of material nature is about levels of consciousness. So, chapter 14, text number 1, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Krishna is always referred to as Bhagavan. Bhagavan means the supreme being, the absolute truth, the source of all creation. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna said, again I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained supreme perfection. So what is the purpose of being here and reading the Bhagavad Gita, studying it, understanding it? It is this. It is that by knowing this which is the supreme wisdom, right? This he calls Jnanam Uttamam. Uttam means the greatest. Jnanam means knowledge. Jnanam Uttamam. Yaj Gyatva Munaya Sarve. All the munis, all the rishis, all the great sages, the wise people for thousands of years knew this knowledge and attained the supreme perfection. That is called Param Siddhim. Ito Gatihi. Right? They attained Param Siddhi, the greatest mystical attainment, the greatest power the yogi can attain is this knowledge which you are hearing right now. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So, by becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to a transcendental nature like my own, Krishna is saying. What is Krishna's nature? Krishna says in an earlier verse that he is never born and never dies. He is eternal. He is Satchit Ananda, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Brahma, in the Brahma Samhita, the Brahma is known to be the designated creator of the universe, designated by God to create. God doesn't personally do anything, unlike some of the religions of the world. God is not busy, doesn't involve himself with doing, creating, or destroying anything. God is involved with love. That is the only activity God is immersed in. Creating, destruction, people have been designated to do that task. So Brahma has been designated to do the creation of the world. And Brahma, when he before he begins the creation, he sees the source of all, Krishna. And he says, Ishvara Parama Krishna, you are the supreme controller of everything. You are the Lord of all lords, the master of all creation. Ishvara Parama, Paramishwar. You are the supreme controller, the supreme Lord of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha, and you have a form, a spiritual form that is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. So unlike human beings who live in physical bodies, God lives in a has a spiritual form, a form that is not destroyed by death ever, that is not subject to old age, and that is not subject to disease. If you see the picture of Krishna in the background there, you see him standing up. He's shown as sort of bluish. That's to indicate in artistic language that he has a transcendental form. So here he's saying, by becoming fixed in this knowledge, you too can attain a transcendental nature like my own. In other words, you too can go from having a physical form to having a spiritual form. So right now, your soul is hidden and concealed, and the only way you see the world is through these eyes, and therefore you can only see the spectrum that these eyes can behold. You cannot see beyond that spectrum. You can only hear the spectrum that these ears can hear. That's all. There is much more beyond what you can see and what you can hear and what you can touch. And there are many dimensions and there are many other possibilities. But even beyond all of them is the fact that that soul of yours, has the ability to either be just a spark of light or to have a spiritual form. And that spiritual form is what Krishna is talking about here. You too can attain this spiritual form. You cannot see such spiritual form with your eyes, with your physical eyes. Only one who has attained to that level can see. So therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, I give you transcendental vision by which you can see my divine nature. And he says, well, what's the benefit of this? The benefit of having such a spiritual form is that you will no longer take birth in this world. You will no longer be part of samsara, the wheel of cycle, in the cycle of birth and death. And you will not be there at the time of creation or the time of dissolution of the universe. You will have transcended this physical creation. Then he continues on at chapter 14, text number 3. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth. So it is out of Brahman. There is this energy in the universe, this energy of which everything is made, is called in Sanskrit Brahman. So it is to be understood that the total material substance, right, that's the material substance, is out of that. So that is the clay. Think of the energy of the universe as the clay from which the potter makes the pot. That same potter can take the same clay and make many more things out of it. Can make a wheel out of it, can make a figurine out of it, can make all kinds of things out of that clay, right? In much the same way, the energy of the universe takes various shapes. Those shapes, that energy, the raw material, is called Brahman, is the source of birth. From it, everything is born. All the plants, all the trees, all the birds, everything. And everything, when it dies, goes back into it. It's similar to an ocean. The waves come up and then they go down back into the ocean. And in much the same way, things are born out of the earth and out of this creation, and then they go back into the earth. Right? So that's the cycle of creation. So he says the total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings. So there's two kinds of energy. One is the energy of the universe, and then there is the energy of consciousness that impregnates the universe. Purusha and Prakriti. Prakriti is the nature of the universe, is the energy of the universe, and Purusha is the energy of consciousness. When consciousness enters into a physical form, like a baby of a human or of an animal or of a bird or of an insect, when consciousness enters into that creature now begins to move. That creature now, its heart begins to beat, its lungs begin to function, its digestion starts to happen, or everything becomes activated. Not only does everything get activated, it is now aware of everything. It feels everything. It sees, it hears, it touches, it experiences this reality through the vehicle of that body. So if you are in the body of an animal, you will experience things as an animal. If you are in the body of an insect, you will experience things as an insect. If you are in the body of a human, you will experience things as a human. But the consciousness that is behind the insect, the animal, and the human is actually all the same. It is of the same nature. And there are times we have been there as an insect, as an animal, as a human. We're having different experiences. It is said that there are, in the Vedas, it says that there are 8,400,000 species altogether, of which 400,000 are human and the rest are animals and birds and insects and so on. And that we have to go through all 8,400,000 species to come to this human form of life. And it is only in this human form of life that the opportunity for liberation comes about. We go through all those different species to come to this human form of life. And if we do not use this human form of life for the purpose that it was intended, that is the purpose of liberation, then we go back again into the other species until we come to the point where we are ready. We get to have all kinds of human experiences as well, maybe many different human experiences as well. But there comes a point where we're just not getting it. There comes a point where we're just not ready. Okay, back into the cycle, back through all those species till you're ready. And when you're ready, as you are right now, for those of you that are listening, that are ready and seeking to understand this knowledge, this highest knowledge of all, you're ready. Now your next step is going to be to take this knowledge and act on it. And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is trying to do, show you the next steps. So Krishna is saying here that he is the source of birth and he impregnates the universe with consciousness, making possible the births of all living beings. It should be understood that all species of life are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I, Krishna, am the seed-giving Father. The verse is very important to read in Sanskrit, and so I'm going to go over that with you. Sarva yonishu kaunteya, that all creatures that are born from a womb of a mother, sarva yonishu kaunteya, murtaya sambhavantiya, tasan brahma mahad yonir, aham bija prada pita. He says aham. Aham means I am. I am. Aham. Bija means a seed. Pradaha pita. Pradaha means giving. Bija pradha means the seed giving. Pita means father. I am the seed giving father of all creatures, or all beings, and all that is living, all that is moving and non-moving. Take that in. So in other words, a lot of people will talk about consciousness. And to those folks I say, all right, consciousness, wonderful. So what creates the world? Consciousness. Okay. Consciousness creates the world. Krishna is saying the same thing. How do you know about consciousness? You don't. See? You depend upon someone who has the knowledge, who lives that experience, and is able to claim it and prove it. Krishna here claims it. No one ever in the entire history of creation has ever claimed this. Not Christ, not Muhammad, not Buddha. No one, no guru has ever claimed to be the source of all material and spiritual worlds, the seed-giving father of all creation. No one. Many have tried to use the title Bhagavan, God, for themselves. But no one has been able to claim, firstly claim, and then secondly prove. We did an earlier chapter where Krishna shows how all universes are present within him. There is a place where Arjuna is challenging him. So how do I know you're what you claim? And then he shows Arjuna within his entire, he creates this gigantic form. You'll see it in the picture in the back there. Sorry, it's in the back there, right behind me. You'll see it in that picture that he's showing this gigantic form to Arjuna. Within that form, he shows him all the universes, the planets, time, past, present, future. Everything is there. So he demonstrates to Arjuna that this is so. That God is standing in front of Arjuna and is claiming to be who he is, and then giving him evidence of the same. So he's able to talk about all these things with tremendous authority because he is the authority that knows about this stuff. So before I go into now reading about the three modes of nature, any questions up to this point? Anything you'd like to know more about? Neelu is asking, how can we transcend feminine and masculine? Is then a play of God energies? Yes, everything in this world is a play of God energies. Everything we experience out here is a play of God energies. Everything. The more you begin to understand that we are living in a kind of Disneyland for souls, the more you recognize that, people say, why do bad things happen out here? That's part of the drama. It's part of the Leela. God knows that no one is going to perish here. No one is going to be destroyed or devastated here. Consciousness will never be destroyed. Consciousness is neither created nor destroyed ever, right? That the experiences you're having here will only enrich you. And therefore this Leela, this pastime, this experience that you're having, no matter what happens, you will come out of here the wiser. You will come out of here the better. And there will be no loss. In this endeavor, Krishna says, there is no loss or diminution. You will always come out wiser, no matter what happens. In your vision, in my vision, it may look like, because we see the world dualistically, it may look like, oh my God, how could this terrible thing happen to me? How could he leave me? How could she do that? We have all these sort of things that really bother us. But all of it is Leela, pastimes. The more you develop that vision and begin to learn from each of these things and grow from each of these things and not become identified with them, the more you'll find yourself enjoying your life. Nilu continues to ask, suffering is part of this drama. Yes. Suffering occurs when you identify with the drama. It's like the actor on the stage now feels that they are the role that they are playing. In other words, you think of an actor who goes on a stage and is playing, let's say, a Shakespearean character, let's say King Lear, and now becomes identified as being King Lear, and then therefore goes through all the emotions and the passions and the sufferings that this king goes through. But they're not able to snap out of it and come back to being their original self, the actor. They're not able to take off the mask and the crown and everything else and come back to self. So that is suffering. Suffering is when you're not able to take off your mask. You become identified with the body, the mind, the ego. Then suffering begins to occur. To the degree that you're able to disidentify or detach from identifying with all that is going on, and the more you're able to observe it, the more you're able to witness it, the more free you become. All right, 3 levels of consciousness that I was talking about earlier. Let's get into them. Material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Goodness is referred to as sattva, passion is rajas, and ignorance is tamas. Sattva gun, rajagun, and tamagun. Mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So there are 3 different modes, and they're all 3 acting on us, and we become conditioned to various amounts of these. The mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from karma, from sinful reaction. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So one of the benefits of studying the Gita and practicing meditation and developing devotion to God is that one comes first into the mode of goodness. Mode of goodness is not the same as moksha or liberation. It is a state of consciousness that is considered the highest within this world. So what will happen is that little by little, you will start experiencing yourself as becoming illuminated. See, illuminated in your mind, illuminated in your mind, becoming quieter. You've become aware of these things. You begin to see the separation between you and your thoughts, between you and your emotions, between you and whatever else is happening in this world. You've started to see the separation. I am not that. I am this. Right? I am consciousness. That is that. I am consciousness. What you're saying is what you're saying. What you're doing is what you're doing. What is happening is what is happening. I am consciousness. Right? I see the separation. You say, well, oh no, we're all one and there's no... Listen, hold on. You want to get to that place of interconnectedness. It's not a matter of some cheaply said words. There's a lot of people out there mouthing out these things. Oh, we're all interconnected and we're all one. Excuse me, it's not at the level of words that occurs. It is not at the level of your espousing it that it happens. It is at the level of consciousness that it happens. You first have to begin to recognize that you are the consciousness, separate from the world and the people and the events and everything else. Once you've become identified with the consciousness that you are, at that level, you will begin to feel a sense of oneness with everything and everyone. It is a transformation that occurs within you, not this. It's just not something that you just talk about and so it happens. Yeah, it's not that simple. So the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all karma. Thus, situated in that mode, one becomes conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So actually, this is what happens. You find yourself becoming happier because there is nothing to worry about. There is nothing to be anxious about. There is nothing to be fearful about, right? Because you have the knowledge which destroys all darkness. Then there is the mode of passion. Rajagun. Raja, gun. Gun means mode and of rajas, R-A-J-A-S. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings. And because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive actions or to karma. So if you notice that you have desires, those desires are coming from the mode of passion. Unlimited desires and longings. Therefore, very important to start to bring those down, minimize your desires and longings. We will always have desires and longings, but minimize them. And then gradually work your way into spiritualizing your desires. What does spiritualize mean? It means learn how to channel those desires towards your ultimate destination of spiritual growth. Or what are the things that support me on that path, and what are the things that do not? And then there is the mode of tamas, tamagun. The mode of tamas, or the mode of darkness, is born of ignorance, is the delusion of all embodied living entities. The results of this mode are madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. So basically, someone who's depressed, who is unable to function in this world because they are, as they say, out of it, right? They're kind of affected, they've sort of gone into a place of helplessness. They've gone into a place where it's a dark place where they really just want to sleep and they don't want to do anything and they're not motivated by anything. Perhaps they're homeless. Perhaps they've lost hope in the world. There's a people in the mode of darkness. Now, as we go further, he's going to talk more about what activates the mode of goodness, what activates the mode of passion, and what activates the mode of ignorance, and how we can start moving more and more and more towards the mode of goodness. So I don't have time today to dive into it, but the next week we'll definitely dive into that. How do you raise your consciousness step by step by step? How do you get past the experience of suffering? Because the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, we have varying degrees of those all within us. We have some of this, some of that. Some have more of one, some have more of the other. Right? So how do we go past that and elevate our consciousness? So, are there any questions you have? Anyone would like to ask anything? Anyone have any questions? Anyone would like to ask anything about the mode of goodness or passion or ignorance, or about Krishna, or about the Bhagavad Gita? Some of you are new here. Perhaps some of the concepts we talked about may have been too much. So please feel free to ask. The only request I have is, if you're going to ask something, please come online and put on your camera for a moment. Yes, Neelu's asked if there's a free copy of the Bhagavad Gita. I do have a PDF version, which I'll include in the chat right now, so that you can all have, anyone who would like to have it. And if you want the hard copy, then you can get that from Amazon. I use the version that is used by the Hare Krishna devotees. But let me give it to you right now. Anybody at all? Any questions at all? Okay, I've shared the Bhagavad Gita right now in the chat. If you don't have a copy, please download it. Feel free to read up, and this is just the main text. It's not with any explanations. If for the explanations, you'd have to get the full copy, which is, as I said, on Amazon. This is Bhagavad Gita as it is. So let's see. I'll go down the list. Anyone from here? Neha, Gabrielle, Desai, Craig, Amanda, Aleka. Any of you have any questions? All right, we've got somebody here. Aleka, is that you? Yeah, hi. It's all about integrating. There is no sense in simply hearing these things and reading them without applying them, without integrating. So, the first step really is to deeply understand, right? So, think of it like this, think of it as a science experiment. There's a theory, then there's an experiment, and then there's the conclusion. This experiment is something you will conduct within yourself. You are the lab. All right, it's not out there. That is why scientists don't know how to work with this spiritual science, because this spiritual science is not something you sit with in a laboratory and mix as chemicals are mixed or manipulate the way you do with magnets or electricity or any of those things. This lab is here. And this lab, there are specific measures and or techniques and quantifiers and results that are being talked about in the Gita. So so therefore you have symptoms within that. You will notice here's the process, there's the theory, then there's the experiment you'll do, and then this is the outcomes you should be able to perceive within yourself. Right? So it's a big topic, what those outcomes are. We've been studying this for a while. But be here and I will keep pointing out things from time to time that are practical takeaways that you can actually start to work on. So today, for example, I said start looking at how you can be grateful for the things that are not so good in your life and start turning those around, right? Start looking at, we'll talk further in sessions coming up about how to transform the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion into the mode of goodness. We'll start looking at how do we transform the state of consciousness that we're in to a place where we are more peaceful, more happy, more content with ourselves and with our life. It's a process. And integration is the key to that process. So thank you for asking that, because that's where it's at. To integrate it also means to make it part of your daily life, to make it part of your daily process of living, of thinking, of reacting, of behaving, of doing everything you do. Then it becomes integrated. It's not out there, it's not a theory that is out there, but it's now woven into you. That weaving together, making it intrinsic to you, is what we're looking for. Welcome. Anyone else? I love the questions we've been having today. They've been fabulous. Got a couple more minutes. I just want to kind of make sure we're covering everyone. All right. So for those of you that are new, please know that we're here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And if you're not on my mailing list, please go ahead and let me, in the chat area, just give me your email address and I will make sure that you get the reminders every week so that you know that we're going to be on. Use the chat area and you can send me a private chat so that I can add you. I think those of you that are new, Nilu and Aleka, I already have you. So yeah, everybody else I've got. And if you're reading and if you've downloaded the copy that I put up in the chat area, thanks. If you've downloaded that copy and are reading it, and if you find there are questions in there, feel free to come back with your questions and ask. I'm here for that. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. The Bhagavad Gita is full of amazing wisdom, So dive deep in and learn all you can. All right, take care, everyone. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Tuesday. Jai Shri Krishna. Thanks, Craig. It's great having you here. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.